Welcome to the 61st episode of News Dump, brought to you by Summit Funding, where we run through the hottest topics in the Lewis County news scene and discuss. I'm Chronicle Associate Editor Aaron VanTuyl, joined as always by potential car shopper Eric Schwartz and Frankie Baby himself. Fellas, how are we doing today?
Fantastic, baby.
Yeah, wonderful. And the rumors of my vehicle's demise are greatly overstated. It's still alive.
And you messaged me that you were eating your lunch in the Burger King parking lot.
Again, something that you find very odd, but I think that it's like very relaxing. It's part of my day.
Do you get out of your car and eat on the hood?
Sometimes, yeah. If it's a nice day,
Are you
I'll pop
aware
out
that
on the hood.
it's no longer a Burger King?
No, it is a Burger King over by Walmart. So.
Oh, you went all the way over
You
to
drove
Walmart.
20 minutes to get to a Walmart,
To get
to a Burger King.
Yeah, to stand outside of a BK lounge, and then while I was just sitting there, I was listening to Joe Biden's speech on Afghanistan on NPR, because I'm highbrow like that. And then I went to leave after finishing my double whopper and chicken fingers, and my car wouldn't start. So,
Well,
That's a bad spot to be broken down at.
it's okay. It's okay.
all right.
I'm here. That's all that matters.
I'm glad you're safe and you survived that harrowing incident in the Burger King parking lot. It's Tuesday, August 31st, and we're back. We took a week off last week as Schwartz is vacationing in the happiest place on earth, Long Beach? Seaside?
Seaside. Long Beach, also a nice place, though. I'm not gonna take the disparagement bait that you put there.
He did come back with a black eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He sent me a picture. It was terrifying. Care to discuss?
I fell off my bed. I don't know what else to tell you. It's one of those stories that you would come up with if you were like an abused husband, but it's literally what happened. My 4-year-old daughter sleeps in the middle of the bed, and I fell off, and I hit my head on the nightstand. So I vacationed. I wore sunglasses day and night, indoors, outdoors, wherever.
a lot of concealer.
So that's why.
Yeah, a lot of people in Seaside think I was blind, I'm sure.
All right. Our first big news item, Schwartz, you wanted to mention this up top. The Best of Lewis County results are in.
Yes, today at approximately noon, a helicopter landed here at Chronicle World Headquarters.
Yep.
The briefcase, locked. It's got multiple locks on it.
Multiple locks.
Brought down by 4 paid contractors, military experience for all 4 of them to protect
Some
the
Blackwater
results.
guys.
Yep.
They were delivered to me, and they were quickly ferried off to an undisclosed location as we prepare the Best of Lewis County special section, which will be in the paper on September 30th.
Have you glanced at the results? Seen any surprises? Anything interesting?
Oh, there's some shockers in there. There's some not shockers in there.
The county's going to be blown away.
Yeah.
The people have spoken, and they know what they like best.
20 years from now,
good to know.
people will look back and they will say there was life before Best of Lewis County 2021, and then there was life after Best
And
of
life
Lewis
after,
County 2021.
It's already
So-
sweeter for us. It's already sweeter for us.
But yeah, no, it's going to be great. And we're still planning to have some sort of banquet soiree on the 29th, but obviously that's all up in the air based on what the COVID restrictions are.
Maybe some kind of outdoors event.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Late September, that should be beautiful weather.
Yeah, I can't wait. Shall we jump into our first news item? And I think this is over a week old. With the break, we had lots of material to go through.
Some say too much.
Some would say too much, but this podcast would never say such a thing. So our first item, Lewis County Sheriff speaks out against new police reform laws. This was Sheriff Rob Snaza. He was the main speaker at a Back the Blue sponsored meeting at the Adna Grange, where he talked about the new laws, and I don't think he's a fan. Any thoughts on these? Anything surprising coming out of this meeting for you two?
No, there's kind of like a bit of a tug of war going on right now. So all these police reform bills came out of the legislature, largely in response to the outrage from the George Floyd death, I'd say, and that movement that swept across the country. And I'd say a majority of law enforcement leaders are saying that they're ambiguous, or the wording is that they're going to have to be the ones that interpret what it means, because none of this has been tested by the court system yet. And I would say the majority of them are against the new reform laws. We've had our lawmakers call for a special session to try to at least, add some more specifics in there. And I think he just voiced that more or less.
All right. Franklin, thoughts?
If I was in law enforcement and all of a sudden you got all these new bills coming out telling you how to change your job, how to change what you do every day, I think that would be pretty irritating, being a sheriff or an officer, both sides. And a lot of it, maybe you feel like you can't do your job as effectively as you have before because of these changes, and that might be pretty irritating.
Yeah, all right. One thing that stood out to me, there's a few quotes in here I kind of circled. Snazza referred to de-escalation techniques as judo tactical verbiage and said he found them ineffective in the field. Quote, the people we deal with on a regular basis, they know what verbal judo means too, and they know the game just as much as we do, which I found interesting. Which, are you telling me that the mentally unstable people are too well-versed in de-escalation techniques to be talked down?
I mean, you can't really paint that with a broad brush, I don't think, like individual circumstances, which I think is also what they're saying as well. And just to circle back to Franklin's point just a bit, if you're a small-town rural law enforcement officer and you've never even been accused of the things that have set off this movement, kneeling on someone's neck, shooting someone, using force when you don't need to, things like that, it would be very frustrating.
It would be frustrating
to have to change it. But on the other hand, I do get that, changes do have to be made from time to time in any profession, like literally any profession. So the Attorney General's office has come out and said, no, police should still respond to these mental health calls and still help out. But officers, on the other hand, are worried about their own personal liability and that of their department. If they go and then, someone sues and it ends up in the court, they don't want to be the guinea pig for this new law. So it's safer for them to just back off. So I don't know.
Interesting.
I do think there needs to be a legislative fix of some sort, even if it's just to, double down on the laws, but just make it clearer as to what is expected of our law enforcement officers. I actually thought the most interesting takeaway for me, because I'm kind of familiar after rounds of press releases from the sheriff's office that they oppose these, was Ken Cardinale of the Lewis County Fire District 6, just kind of mentioning that when they go out on mental health calls, not having law enforcement with them, whether that's because they can't or they won't or they don't know, it's just a huge strain on their personnel, and it puts them at risk because they don't have any training at all to deal with that kind of situation.
And that'd be pretty terrifying.
Yeah, and we've heard that from some responders in Thurston County as well. On the other side, I hear a lot of people say that police officers are just making an excuse. They don't want to adapt. They don't want to change. And so those are your two sides.
Yeah, I did feel like, did we ever determine if Snazza's running for higher political office? It seems like he's been doing a lot of things that could be interpreted as
he's never
setting the
indicated
stage
anything
for
otherwise. He's running his Reelect Rob Snazza page on Facebook, as we'll talk about later, I think.
We will?
I think so. I think so.
All right, maybe it's on there.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think a lot of people in Lewis County would vote for him.
Yeah.
That is not a hint of best of Lewis County.
I don't think he's in any risk of losing his position as sheriff.
Has there been
Certainly.
any talk about who would possibly run against him?
No, I don't think he's really faced a serious challenger so far.
I heard Chad Taylor was running against him for sheriff.
Chad Taylor's
He's a
gonna
better
jump in.
publisher than a sheriff.
I can't imagine Chad Taylor the sheriff.
Although he would look pretty darn good in that outfit.
Oh yeah.
That's his Halloween costume.
He dresses up as Rob Snazza.
That'd be awesome.
All right, next
Excuse
item.
you, Aaron.
Sorry. Randy's going to Ridgefield. Ridgefield Randy, they call him.
Yeah,
Randy Mueller headed south.
That's the Port of Chehalis CEO, going back to where he came from previous to this job, where he worked for the Port of Ridgefield in a different capacity, and now
Go
he's going to be
Sputters.
the head guy down there.
Yeah, he's. Do you think they just open a nice gym and he's?
Are you referencing the infamous Randy Mueller guns?
He's gonna go down there and keep working on the gun show, I guess.
Yeah, I did use that photo in posting the story again when he's just like flexing. Well, he's not even flexing. He's just
looking
gesturing
swole.
The
towards
dude's shredded.
Yeah,
He is.
The dude is shredded.
Good for him.
yeah.
Good for him.
Next news item: residents at odds over YMCA camp at Mineral Lake. This is an interesting story. Some of the people that were Mineral residents who don't like the idea of a camp coming to Mineral Lake. One quote from the story at a meeting: "We don't take kindly to outsiders coming in and changing our way of life," one participant said, which strikes me as the kind of thing that if you could just imagine something that would be said and take all the worst stereotypes into account when making it.
Then again, I have a feeling if some partners, the YMCA and the Nisqually tribe, as is the case here, were coming out to your backyard in the Wanch Prairie and wanting to take up your land, you might have some problems with that as well, Aaron.
You mean putting a park next to my
It's
land?
almost to say this is something of a not in my backyard situation.
I would also like to point out this sounds like the perfect setting for a Friday the 13th type murder-a-thon.
You're 100% right there.
That is exactly what they're setting
accurate.
up.
I thought Claudia did a really nice job on this story of getting both sides, that being the side of some of the locals that are a little reluctant on this. And if you look at the numbers, it is a little terrifying because you're looking to like rezone 643 acres into like resort type zoning, and that sounds bad. But according to her reporting, only about 10 acres would be developed. The rest is going to be for outdoor recreation, hiking, climbing.
And would that be open for everybody just to go use their trails?
I don't know that. That's a really good question. I don't know that because the camp wouldn't be operational, I wouldn't imagine, at all times. So that is a good question.
No, you got to leave. We got to leave enough space for the camp to be, non-operational while there's still good weather outside.
Sure.
So you can get some kids sneaking into that camp.
But you're talking about a town, Minerals. I mean, the residencies there, it's like 250 people live there. So, it's a small town. If something big moves in, you're always going to have something like this.
Yeah, I agree.
And Mineral Lake is more or less just pristine, untouched wilderness. So yeah. On the other hand, I, as the editor of this paper and having an involvement at the NVN, the Nisqually Valley News, I'm very happy to have a story that can go in both papers.
Yeah, great stuff.
This is backed by the Nisqually tribe.
Our next news item, Lewis County paid $2,700 over former Commissioner Bobby Jackson's noncompliance with the mask mandate. So Bobby Jackson asked the prosecuting attorney's office to ditch the mandate, quote, language from the county's own workplace policy. And then, according to LNI, I believe, he told LNI he was unaware that the masking directive was a statewide requirement. The statement was, quote, questionable. Again, this is from LNI, considering Jackson's own Facebook post, the report stated. Then in late June, Jackson, this is last June, he told the public he was working remotely because I do not want the taxpayers of Lewis County to pay a large LNI fine on my behalf. I am responsible for managing your dollars, and I won't be the cause of financial loss to the county. But the next day, he went to an in-person meeting with no face covering, and
According to LNI.
According to LNI. So the two remaining commissioners authorized payment for $2,700 last winter, Jonathan Meyer told the Chronicle.
And I think as the newspaper, we've got to own up to the fact that this is old news that we missed. So we told the whole story all along about how LNI was breathing down the county's neck, et cetera, et cetera. And we didn't know about this fine until it came up, presumably in a county meeting recently. And the reporter, Claudia, came and asked if we should write about it. And I said, yeah, I think so. It's the end of a story that we had been writing about all last year. It's not a ton of money, $2,700, but I think it's taxpayer money, and that's part of our job here is to, tell people where their money's going. So.
Yeah, and I also believe that on this very podcast, you referred to the Bobby Jackson medical health shield, humanities shield controversy as one of the dumbest controversies we've ever had.
That was a long time ago, Aaron. That was 2020.
Oh,
we've had way worse since then, and I imagine we'll have worse than before. It just seemed
worse
weird.
is coming.
It seemed weird at the time, at that point in the pandemic, I had never imagined in my career I would have to, we'd be reporting on whether or not somebody was wearing a face covering and like the effects of that on
and what a face covering it was.
Yeah, it was majestic.
It was something, all right. It looked like the thing Marty McFly wears when he gets out of the DeLorean in 1955.
And this was kind of novel this time last year, but now it's like every school district is facing this kind of thing, and like you're going to have enforcement from the state with the mask mandate. I know Mossy Rock recently sent a letter from their school district saying that they didn't really want to follow it, and Onalaska doesn't really want to follow it, so it just makes you wonder if there's going to be more fines coming down the pike.
Yeah.
That's when it's hard, too, because you have a lot of those schools that want to take a stance there, but if they were to lose funding for anything, it always falls back on it's the kids that pay on certain things like that, and that's the hard part to watch. Is if the state was to pull funding from some of those schools, watching some of those smaller schools' programs suffer would be tough to swallow.
Yeah, and I know for a lot of parents, they were saying at the meetings that it would be well worth it, and go for it, and you have our backing. It's also interesting. You look at the other side of the country in Florida to see the exact opposite debate going on with the government saying no mask mandate to the schools putting putting mask mandates into place.
Yep.
And
Yep.
them withholding funding, I read today, for school board members, I think just their pay. But
The complete opposite.
yeah,
The
it
complete.
runs the spectrum. And, people are just as frustrated and angry over there as they are here, but
I
for
can
opposite
imagine,
reasons.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Our next item, $9 million settlement reached for shuttered Centralia Kiwanis facility allegations. These were allegations of abuse and neglect. This is a long ago story. 7 more residents of the shuttered Centralia Boys Home will benefit from a multi-million-dollar settlement over their time at the Kiwanis Run facility, which was fraught with stories of physical and sexual abuse. Great opportunity to get fraught into a story. That's one of those words you don't hear in the real world very often, but you read in newspapers quite a bit.
Yeah. Newspapers are fraught with fraught.
They are.
The newspaper's still real world, Aaron.
And yeah, like you said, this is a continuation of a long story. I thought it was interesting at the end of the 7 total plaintiffs, 3 still live in Lewis County. Their legal team is encouraging them to use the settlement money to buy property or homes that could provide stability. And that tracks with when we officially initially broke this story back in 2016, 2015. The people that were calling us and telling us all these horrible incidences of abuse and sexual assault that took place were in many cases doing it from essentially cell phones or living out in homeless and saying this ruined my life. And it always reminds me when Natalie Johnson, who won many awards for this series of stories, was interviewing one of the people that was in charge of the home. I won't use their name, but when she was interviewing, she was like, these are the claims these kids are making. What would you respond to a kid that said he was sexually assaulted and nobody did anything? And the person, without flinching, responded, they're criminals, right? As if that makes it any better. They're kids, they were kids.
Yeah,
they were kids.
And it's tragic in so many ways, but I'm happy to have a small part in shining light on it all these years later.
Yeah, it sounded like a pretty less than ideal situation at the Kiwanis home.
Yeah, normally not news dump fodder.
A true black eye on the Watch Prairie, some would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of black eyes, a Thurston County man tries to pass off a bar fight as a workplace injury and pleads guilty. So this was a 40-year-old young man who pleaded guilty on Tuesday to misrepresenting a bar fight as a workplace accident and stealing workers' compensation insurance benefits from the state. This is Chuck Wayne Riccio, pleaded down to third-degree assault. L&I says they investigated his claim.
I can't stop laughing at this story. I'm sorry.
L&I says they investigated his claim after an acquaintance provided text messages where Riccio indicated he knowingly falsified his workplace injury claim. What a shitty friend.
I know. That's what I was saying.
That's not a real friend. Because
Yeah,
I feel like
that
the
is
friend has to
truly-
reach out to L&I.
It makes
Truly
me
an
sad.
acquaintance.
Why would
friend.
L&I is just not going to text your buddies?
It makes me sad for the defendant. Is that was probably the one person he trusted more than anyone else in the world to send this. L&I is going to come me now, and then that person was
you'll
just
have no idea.
screenshot.
Yeah, dude, you have no idea what I just got away with.
Oh, it shouldn't be funny, but
No.
I
Be
find
careful who
humor
you
in it.
trust.
In happier news, second family of Wolverines documented at Mount Rainier National Park. Hell yeah, we got
Yeah.
Wolverines, baby.
Another batch.
Yeah, this is the third Wolverine family documented in the South Cascades in a century. Mount Rainier National Park Superintendent Greg Dudgeon said, "It's great news to learn that we have our second documented Wolverine litter in the park. It helps us confirm that the park's wilderness is excellent habitat for Wolverines, and that protection of these wild areas is important to the success of many species of wildlife." So the question, good or bad for tourism?
My biggest thing is I just cannot stop thinking about Hugh Jackman right now.
There's just 2 batches of baby Hugh Jackmans
That's
running,
all I can
running
picture.
around.
It's like,
These
wow.
swole singing Australians.
I want to visit.
It reminded me of, I don't know why, any animal recovery story always reminds me of, and you'll have to look it up on your own time because I don't remember all the details, but Idaho reintroducing beavers to Idaho by just pushing them out of airplanes in crates with tiny parachutes.
They had parachutes on the beaver.
I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that.
They had them on the boxes, and then obviously the beavers can just chew their way out of the crates.
Because
How did they take the parachutes off?
I later sarcastically suggested they use the same means to reintroduce grizzlies to Washington in the Cascades, but they just get blown off course.
Until it just catches wind and we got grizzly bears in Centralia.
I don't think it'll do anything for tourism
the rats will
because
take care of those bears.
Wolverines are famously secretive and elusive, and I don't think you're going to find them. But I do think it's cool to have another carnivore around, as long as it's not a risk to me personally.
Well, as long as it doesn't go into the river and start eating salmon, yeah.
I think the real question, if we're talking species, what do you guys feel about wolves? Because they're eventually going to be back up in the Cascades. Some say they already are.
I don't have a strong opinion on wolves. Like, they're fine. Let them go. I mean, it's
not
nature.
necessarily my spirit animal, but them being here would be honestly kind of cool.
My
Go to Northwest Trek and see them right now.
You can see a wolverine up there too.
My experience as a former Montana resident for a little over a year is that everyone loves wolves until you live with wolves and have pets or livestock or whatever.
I agree with that. So if you have wolves in our area and cougars as well, which one is the apex predator?
I don't know.
Let's wolf versus cougar.
Are you going to Google this live? Wolf versus cougar? I don't
Animal
think this
face-off. There's a lot of videos on YouTube.
Yeah, that's
Can a
not
wolf
good.
fight a cougar?
It's not going to get you anywhere.
Let's see. Wolves limit mountain lions. In fact, wolves kill mountain lions. This has never been disputed, according to timberwolfinformation.org.
Ooh.
Wow. That's a .org.
That's
Well, this is coming
.org.
This is coming from timberwolfinformation.org. Cougarinformation.org may tell a different story.
Very
It sounds very biased in favor of wolves.
A lot like the news, you're going to have two sides to every story.
Yes, we don't want the like the cougar base coming after us. How dare you?
How dare you?
It also should give rise, as schools are considering mascot changes. Wolverine, now more of a regional mascot. Maybe Toledo should reconsider Riverhawks and go River Wolverines.
I like Wolverines as a mascot.
Why does that
There's not enough of them.
Mountain Wolverines.
Ooh, yeah, Mountain Wolverines.
That's a mouthful, though.
Yeah, I mean, Rainier could
Who
change.
is
They're
the
the Mountaineers.
Wolverines?
They were the Rainier Wolverines. That's sick.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but if you're Rainier, you have to be the Mountaineers.
Is Bellevue? I know they have the Michigan helmets, but
Bellevue I'm pretty sure Bellevue is the Wolverines.
I mean, they have the same helmets as Michigan,
Yeah.
so I've always assumed it. But
I can't think of any other like closer to local schools that are Wolverines, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
Honey Badger would still win.
Honey badgers are tough. Let's see. Next item. Onalaska staff, students will wear masks this fall, remaining in line with state guidance. On Monday, the Onalaska School Board opted to not vote on a proposed mask optional policy that's been deliberated in recent weeks. The district likely would have lost all its funding, as we previously discussed, except for local levy dollars if the board passed the policy. Local levy dollars often make up like 10 to 15% of a budget, maybe if that. The district did, though, pass a statement against critical race theory at its meeting, which was met with a resounding applause from attendees. It seems like
it's a mixing of controversies. I respect that
crossover
they're
episode?
packing these into. A lot of districts are handling these in multiple controversial meetings, and they're getting it done in one. And that's efficiency. Aaron.
It's almost like a fantasy football draft where if you can't get students not wearing masks in the first round, you go for your number 2 pick. Your auto pick would be critical race theory thing. Superintendent Jeff Davis said, "I know that parents have options for homeschooling. We've heard that a lot of parents are going to choose that, and that's fine. That's always been an option for parents. We'd love to have their kids on campus, but we understand, too, that they have the right to homeschool their child. If you were to decide to homeschool your child over a mask mandate, I feel like that's the kind of thing that 20 people would decide to do in week 1, and by week 2, 2 of those people would still be homeschooling their children."
I don't know.
That's tough. I know I personally would not want to homeschool my kids just because there is no way I could find the time to do that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's where, at some point you'd come down off of your pile of ideals and just send your damn kids to school.
Yep.
I also think that it's not very helpful to just say there's a right and a wrong on that when kids come in endless forms. Like, some kids just aren't going to be able to wear a mask. That's just a fact to me. It's just not. Some are going to be fine, and some it's not going to affect at all. Others it's going to affect greatly. And so I don't think just saying, yes, it's right, wear a mask, no. I think there's a reason a lot of parents don't want to deal with it, and it's not just some ideological, political thing. I think that there are good reasons why, and I think a year and a half into a pandemic, or however far we are, a year and a half, more than that, it's really easy to think it's just really normal to have this conversation, but it's not normal. Like, these are really odd times that we're
Very
having
odd
a debate
conversations.
over whether or not your kid is going to be forced to wear a mask, or whether or not you are going to be able to keep your job or have to get a shot. Like, no matter which side you fall on, I think we would all have a better conversation if we at least acknowledged that.
And if you went
yeah.
back 3 years ago and you were to, your future self was to say, would you believe that in 3 years from now we will be arguing on do
Yeah.
our kids wear masks at school or not? You'd probably think you're talking to a crazy person.
Yeah, and both sides tend to think that the whole topic is settled, that they are right because they've seen that information, and I don't think anything's settled. So I understand the angst. My kids will be going to school with masks, though. That's what we're doing.
Yep. I have heard from a lot of people, I see the other side of it too, both sides really, is, the mask mandate's back, but businesses are allowed to stay open without those crazy restrictions. So if we just have to wear masks in order to not go back into phases or not get shut down again, then I'll happily wear a mask so local businesses can stay open.
Yeah, if that's the trade-off, yeah.
So if you look at it as schools, is a lot of kids don't have the home life where they have a supportive family where they can help them with their homework. So them getting to go to school is actually a really good thing for them. And a mask seems like that is a smaller issue than what some kids could be going through if they don't have school to go to.
That's an excellent
I
point,
agree.
Frank.
That's a very good point.
So
That's an excellent point.
I guess we'll see. I mean, because school starts next week.
Yeah,
And this
week for some kids,
Yeah.
yeah. Lisa Grant made a similar point in her letter to the editor. She's the Centralia school superintendent, and she was like, I've heard a lot of parents really hate the idea of masks, but if it gives us 5 days, full days in school, then I will wear a mask.
Yes, I
that's just the
agree.
way it is.
I
So
agree.
that's a good way to look at it, Frank.
Yeah. Our last item is a news item anyway. Snaza doubles down on "Don't be a sheep" messaging. I have not actually read this story, but it was in the notes.
Good.
So
I can't imagine you not reading a Chronicle story before commenting on it half-cocked, fully
looks
loaded.
like
He's got the cliff notes. He
looks
spark
like,
noted that.
on Monday, all 3 county commissioners criticized vaccine mandates. Commissioner Sean Swope, who last week spoke at a Medical Freedom Lewis County anti-mandate event, assured county employees that a county-level mandate for staffers is not something I'd ever entertain. As we know, Sean Swope makes all county decisions unilaterally.
Oh, the other 2 were in opposition to it as well.
They were, but
Gary Stamper made the best quote. He was like, in this county, Thurston County just implemented one. You can choose to test up there. But in this county, Lewis County, you're suddenly not going to have enough people to carry out the county's business if you do that. That's probably a fact.
Yeah, probably, maybe. Anyway.
For the vaccines, and not even only the vaccines, but also other organizations that serve kids, but not necessarily schools, like daycares.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see another shortage of facilities where kids can go after school because of the vaccine mandate as well.
I'm still hoping enough people will just get the shot because I think it works. And, by the end of September, when all this stuff's supposed to go in, Jay's going to do what he's done about 4 times and just be like, all right, we got enough done. We're fine. Everybody keep your jobs. Go back to what you're doing.
Yep.
Is that naive?
I don't know if it's naive. I personally wouldn't want to be the one that rolls the dice on that.
Yeah.
Like calling, I'll call your bluff.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I just said there's been at least 3 pivot points in this pandemic where Jay Inslee has come to the point of doing something huge and then just announces, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and I have heard quite a few people make that point. And the ones I feel bad for is the people that take the hard stance, like I'm not getting it, so they either quit, retire early, and throw the towel in. So if you go down the road where, say, they do lift this mandate, those people getting their jobs back, what does that look like? And has a vaccinated person taken what their role was?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty interesting times, especially with this mandate.
But we haven't even allowed to say that Snaza said, don't be a sheep again. That was the point of this stuff.
Yeah, which, didn't he walk that back the first time?
He did, and the story details that as well. He kind of walked it back because there was some outrage to it. That was the first mask mandate, so the first time that happened. And so he walked it back a little bit and then kind of doubled down on it again. And then on his Elect Rob Snaza page, he wrote, the words I spoke over a year ago, don't be a sheep, mean even more today. So many families are now forced to make decisions that go against our constitutional freedoms. This is not what freedom looks like. Forced mandates go against the very core of who we are as a country. To give up our freedoms for a moment of security is not the answer.
I don't know that I really agree with the constitutional thing. Like, there's a long history of the federal government requiring vaccinations for things like the military and
Yeah.
Military especially, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like. I'm hesitant to call it unconstitutional for something like that.
I don't
And
like
Washington-
the idea of it. We've talked about that. Like, not that you oppose it, but like,
No.
the idea just does not feel right. But I'm sure that would be the case in any situation where you're asked to get a shot and then you're told you have to get the shot. But
Yep.
Yeah, and Washington is, as we all know, a right-to-work state. You can be fired for anything.
yeah, that is also true. His statement did give way to the most popular letter to the editor we've had in a long time. It was also very short. It was from Steve Brown in Chehalis, and it was just, "I am not a sheep, I am a veteran," is the name of the letter to the editor. And he was just talking kind of the point you just made, that, 2 generations ago, his neighbors asked him to stand in harm's way, so he donned the uniform. He got a battery of shots, followed by orders to do 20 push-ups, and then lost his freedom of choice of movement and privacy, and he did it because he loves his country. And he was like, "This time they're asking me to wear a tiny paper mask, take a shot with no push-ups," and I'm happy to do that. So
I was here when he dropped that letter off. I was the one that actually took it from him. He was the coolest dude.
yeah,
The coolest dude. I was like, that's a great letter.
it really resonated with a lot of people.
It did.
So.
The comment section looked amazing.
You read a comment section?
I did. I read his comment section. I was like, oh, geez, this is awesome.
It's kind of a disarming letter because obviously people can be pretty brutal online if you just come out and state the stats on, this is why vaccines work and et cetera. But if you're a veteran who's, done service to his country and you're just stating the facts that flatly, there's really not much to argue with.
No, he makes some good points. Let's see. Franklin, you've got a big event coming up this weekend, right?
Oh boy.
I do. I
man.
do. It is the big wedding day.
And,
Congratulations,
yeah,
Frank.
congratulations.
Thank you.
What are you be changing your last name to?
I am going to hyphenate her last name.
Oh, good.
That's very progressive of
No,
you.
I'm just kidding. No, we did talk about it, though.
When you're finally officially married and you and your beloved can finally move in together, have you found your dream home?
Oh, man. We were thinking about this.
What is the missus looking for? The
She's-
soon-to-be Mrs. Franklin.
I would like to think of something with an antique vibe to it. Maybe mid-century modern.
Oh, mid-century modern. That sounds great.
But it's also expensive, Aaron.
You're right.
The process is such a maze. Like, how is he even going to get to that?
I don't know how to do any of it.
Do you have any of that planned out at all?
No, I don't know where to
would hate
start.
for you to be a befuddled, inexperienced first-time husband.
Uh-oh.
So to prevent all that, I've got a recommendation.
Okay.
You need to call Summit Funding.
Summit Funding.
They're the home loan experts. Call up, talk to Jason Gillespie. He will turn that maze into a clean, straight hallway you can just walk down, much like the beautiful aisle you'll be walking down this weekend.
That's it. I can't wait.
He'll
I
hook
can't
you
wait.
up with everything you need and explain the process. So give him a call. That's Jason Gillespie with Summit Funding. They're the home loan experts. He's at 360-330-4037. That's his office number. You can fax him if you want. Maybe just a picture of a nice mid-century modern you've drawn.
That's it. That's it. What is his fax?
His fax number is 360.
Why is that always the top question during these spots?
360-205-4099.
Got it.
You can email him Gillespie, that's Gillispie, team at summitfunding.net. You can stop by his office, 1616 South Gold Street in Centralia. And of course, Frank, this is important. Use promo code NEWSDUMP and get 50% off your first house.
Hey, does he know we're running that promo?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, of course he does.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And with that, let's move on to Tales from the Takes page. I haven't gone through these, but Eric Schwartz assures me there are some great opinion pieces that have appeared over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I thought there were some good ones. One of my favorites, and it's not that I necessarily agree with the gentleman, but it was more the tact in which he took. We got a guest commentary from Lewis County resident Zachary Pills. He's a state worker who has objections to the vaccine mandate, seems from his letter to be leaning towards losing his job rather than getting it. The headline was one Christian libertarian state worker's perspective on a vaccine mandate. And it was pretty well received, I thought, across the board, just in terms of commenters. Because mostly right off the top, he was like, I'm really sorry if you lost loved ones. I do not want to minimize that. I understand completely if you disagree with me, but let me just explain myself. And I thought in many ways that it did more of a service for the cause of people who are against the mandate than, kind of the photos of some of the more outrageous signs that are being waved.
Yeah.
Like my body, my choice, things like
Inslee,
that.
keep your little prick away from
Right.
me.
If you're someone on the other side, you're very in favor of the vaccine. Everybody should have to get it. I think this is a lot more like helpful and practical and palatable in terms of understanding where some of these people are coming from.
Especially not taking this such the hard front, like sympathizing with them. Like, I know that this has caused everyone pain at some point, but here's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and he didn't minimize and he didn't try to change anyone's minds. It was kind of a window inside of that mindset. He and his family have all gone through COVID. It worked through their house, and so he kind of detailed that a little bit too. But I don't know. None of us really, myself included, don't really listen to people anymore. We've all kind of decided what we want, and I thought this was a good example. And I hope I'm not going too far in saying this, but this commentary got the endorsement of Chronicle columnist Brian Mitke, just saying, you take a look at this, and no one on our opinion page has been louder for vaccines than Brian Mitke. So I think this is a nice little microcosm of here's somebody that thinks vaccines are our ticket out of this, and here's someone that doesn't want them, and they're talking.
No, I agree. And seeing Mitke kind of say, "Hey, this is worth a read."
Yeah,
and he's been on team Get Vaccinated.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are closer to that than anything. Like, if you guys are in a store and you got your mask on, you walk by somebody without a mask, or you're like muttering under your breath, like, what an a-hole. I hate this guy. Like, I don't think that's playing out every day. I think it plays out online, but it's not what I'm seeing out in the community every day.
No.
So I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Let's see. What else we got? McCroskey's got a column, mandatory vaccines and illegal border crossings. I wonder where he's going with that one. I will just read some of the comments on the story at the end. One of the comments...
I didn't get to read this one. This one came through on my vacation. So
some of the comments, polio started in 1908 and was a licensed vaccination in 1955. That's 47 years, just saying. And the reply is, you realize that between 1908 and 1955, compared to medical technology of today, they were in the medical dark ages, just saying. And then one more comment, you're right, John, it's about freedom. Look at Hitler, what he did. Just saying.
Come on.
Come on now.
Somebody's
Hitler
just
into this.
throwing a Hitler in there.
I can't.
So...
I don't get. I'm sure I did at some point in my life. I think everybody burns one Hitler comparison, and then quickly realizes that your argument has just been nuked as soon as you bring out.
Yeah,
the
you're
old...
like, maybe I shouldn't have used. I still have my Hitler card.
Yeah,
I haven't used that. I don't plan on using it.
I feel like the first law of internet commenting sections is that at some point it will devolve into either Jesus or Hitler. Mm-hmm. So often both.
Yeah. I don't know why you had to throw those two in the same pot.
Well, they're
sure.
just the opposite ends of the spectrum.
I wonder if their iPhones ever how it pops up with the next suggested word. You are literally whatever the middle one is. Hitler. Okay, Hitler.
Literally anything else. We can autocorrect this to whatever you want.
I also enjoyed Richard Stride's commentary. He's the Cascade Healthcare CEO. And he didn't take a side. He's always good at this. His headline is COVID-19 Thoughts and Why, quote, I don't have to listen to you. And he was just kind of explaining from I would say a psychotherapist position, the reasons no one's going to listen to you. And the only way you ever have power is if you have one of the 6 forms of power, which are legitimate power, reward power, expert power, reverent power, coercive power, informational power. And then
he's incorrect. They're actually the Mind Stone, the Soul Stone, the Power Stone.
Fair enough.
And if you have them all,
the Space Stone, the Time Stone,
the Life Stone.
But then he ended the column with, and even if you have all those, people don't want to listen to you. They won't. So you can scream as loud as you want. Nobody cares.
It doesn't matter what he's writing. His columns are always worth reading.
Yeah, it's definitely different than any newspaper column you're going to read.
I agree.
Because just as a reader, I feel he's dead set on not offending anyone, but not at the expense of making a point. So he'll definitely, I don't know, he more analyzes the situation. He's not taking a stance.
No, he's a great writer. His columns are good to read.
Let's see. We've also got a Brian Mitke column from last Friday.
Congratulations to Brian Mitke, by the way.
Looking back on 20 years
Why are
into
we
Happily Ever After.
Okay.
Yeah.
20 years.
This week, he celebrated 20 years of marriage with the wife of my youth. It's a momentous occasion that we celebrated with kayaking, takeout Samsiri Thai food, and a slice of carrot cake from Sweet Inspirations, and that just sounds delightful.
Yeah.
Shop local is like the big thing I'm getting from that.
Not true love ever after.
Shop local, baby.
You marketing
Franklin's going to
SOB.
run home after this. babe, the secret.
The
You got to
secret.
shop loco.
20 years. 20 years. You know what it was?
Let's run down to Jerry's store and get a sixer.
That's it.
The
Hey,
best
shop
part
local.
of Mitke's column was his intro this week. He often will intro with a couple quotes, and he had two quotes. One was a Bible verse, and the second was a different quote. So he had Galatians 5:22-23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And then his next quote is, Wov, tu Wov, the priest from The Princess Bride.
Just a great sampling of experts
It
on
was
love.
really good. It drew me in.
His column's good. 20 years. Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah, congratulations
Yeah.
to Brian Mitke.
What are you at, Eric?
Oh, don't put me on the spot.
Come on,
Something
what are you
like that.
at?
I got married in 2013.
Was it 2013?
Yeah.
Can I count that on my
2013.
fingers? Oh, okay.
8 years.
Oh,
I didn't even have to think about it. It's etched on my heart.
Is it okay? Okay. I was just hoping. I was trying to add some
I
dramatic
counted on my
pause. So
fingers.
if so happens your wife does listen to this,
She doesn't. She's not remotely interested in my work. It's what's gotten us this far.
fair enough.
Let's see. Anything else? Bill Moeller writes a column, Computer Gremlin Strikes and Other Gripes. I assume this is in response to Bill Moeller emailing you the same column multiple times.
Oh, that was a snafu, Aaron. Come on. We're not talking inside baseball on this podcast.
Don't give him the trade secrets, Aaron.
Yeah.
Bill Moeller has been our columnist for us for 12 years now, and I believe he is 96 years old, and he still comes in here, still does his own gardening, I'm told.
The dude's awesome.
Yeah,
The
he is
dude's awesome. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's something.
And I think that's all we've got in Tales from the Takes page.
I think you squeezed a lot of that orange.
Next section, let's see. People's Champion of the Week. I've got Lewis County Law Enforcement for doing the Special Olympics torch run.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. We actually drove downtown, headed towards the wedding venue to get ready this weekend, and my wife was like, "Oh my goodness, look what's going on!" So we pulled over, we watched it, and it was awesome. I think they did a wonderful
I missed
job
the
this year.
bigger progression that they would do during the week pre-COVID times. Where, like, I remember the kind of iconic image we would have of, like, we had Centralia Police Chief Carl Nielsen, Glenn Schaefer from Chehalis, and Snaza all walking together with the group of athletes behind them.
That's
And
awesome.
I always thought that was great. And this one was a bit of I think they were doing it in pairs, and if you wanted to support them, you could run on your own. Just
Yeah.
kind of an adaptation.
I also feel like they used to do it during the school year because I remember like being in 4th grade and they'd all bring you out to the road. You could watch the torch run by.
Yeah, it was a big, like, middle of the week thing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think the Special Olympics are awesome, and you can still support them. If you go click on that story, I think it's still the top story on chronline.com. There's a link that you can donate to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Support the athletes.
Support the athletes. That's awesome.
Sirens Banger of the Week. You guys ready for this one?
Oh, man, this
give
one
it
was
to me.
awful. I
Give
read
it
this
to
one
me.
on vacation, and it was so awful, and also just, like, just go ahead.
It made you want to come home.
Centralia man charged for allegedly killing neighbor's cat on Sunday. Just terrible.
That is so sad.
Aaron D. Drop 49 has been accused of intentionally killing a kitten because it poops in his. Oh, it was a kitten? Well, now it's even worse.
Yeah, what kind of...
Because it poops in his garden, according to court documents. When questioned by the police, Drop allegedly admitted to killing the cat and reportedly said he was tired of cats coming into his yard and getting out of the house, and that this would send his message to all the other cats.
Yeah, are you kidding me?
Is this how cats work?
That's
Do they
not how
talk?
cats work.
Don't
I'm
go over
pretty
there.
sure.
That guy he killed a kitten.
That
the other
guy
day.
kills cats. You know, the hard part about this is the guy's you're tired of cats using the restroom in your garden? Does he not understand proper fertilizing?
Yeah.
He probably doesn't have that great of a garden.
He should read Mitke's column.
Also, surveillance footage obtained by Centralia Police showed that Drop walked into the neighbor's yard and picked up the cat. So the cat wasn't even in his yard when he did it. Not that that would make it any better and make you any less of a sociopath, come on.
That's a targeted attack.
Come on.
That's
Killing
a targeted
kittens.
attack.
Quite bad.
I mean, it would be bad if you had taken the kitten and driven down the road about 4 or 5 miles and let it out. Like, that would have been really bad. But this is just...
Especially with the
ugh.
Wolverines.
Yes,
Good
drove it
callback.
all the way to the South Cascades and tossed him out there.
Yeah, I don't know. The one comment on that story, at least on Cronline, was hopefully the landlord will evict this person for animal cruelty and improve the neighborhood. Otherwise, they are an accessory. I think if I owned property and knew that my tenant did something like that, I think I would. And especially in this market, tell them to kick rocks.
But can he evict him right now?
Yeah, there's no moratorium is lifted.
Yeah, it's over.
Fair enough. Okay.
Let's see. Business feature roundup. Shayla's business, A Pretty Place, closes. Ties up loose ends with positive outlook for the future. I have never been to A Pretty Place, but it looks interesting. And I don't know where we're going to get our podcast glamour shots done now. I had a nice little, afternoon planned for us.
I was looking forward to that.
We were going to climb in a bathtub together.
I was really looking
with
forward to
like a
that.
pink umbrella, and
I was going to hold a disco ball. I thought it would have been real fun.
I thought it would have been really cool.
I gotta say, this is one of the most like classy and graceful closing of a business I've ever read about. Just like she goes out on her way out, she had a selfie museum raising money for an Oakville family that lost their home. They weren't able to have the event, but she's still going to back that fundraiser and still match all the funds. She just decided she wanted to do something else, and that's cool. I bet you whatever she does next, it'll be successful.
Yeah, and it looked like a pretty, like I mentioned, it's not my kind of establishment to frequent, but it looked like it was pretty interesting and pretty well done as far as finding a niche and kind of filling it and being
I
like,
agree.
hey, we've got an open storefront in downtown Chehalis. We'll set up a bunch of cool shit, and you can come take your picture.
No, I think that's cool too because you see that in a lot of the bigger cities.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that, some of these businesses, they're starting to open in our community. They're opening downtown Chehalis. They're opening downtown Centralia. I think it's pretty cool to see these businesses come here, open up, and then close down after a little bit. But still
Well, maybe
interesting.
not so much the last part.
Maybe not the last part, but I still thought
Walk
it was,
it back, but yeah.
no,
No, I got where
but
you're
it's
going.
cool, like seeing, hey, they're
Yeah.
coming down here, new ideas are coming. It's the younger generation is opening up businesses. These are their ideas. These are what they're doing, and I think that's awesome. I think we're going to see a lot of other cool businesses follow.
It sounded from the story
her
too. She was
footsteps.
already like independently successful as like a graphic designer, and this was just something. She's an Onalaska high school graduate. She wanted to try this out, and that she did a lot of the branding for Lewis County Coffee Company, which is just exploding.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that's a great brand. They've done fantastic branding, like as far as
I
the
feel like
coffee
I drive
company
down a
goes.
road and there's not a coffee stand, not a Lewis County coffee stand, and then I drive down the road the next day and boom, they got a whole stand
They are
overnight.
expanding.
Yeah, they're growing.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So it was a cool business, and she's also handing off the space to someone else. So it's not like it's going to be an empty place. She said she was excited to share that Shante Evander of Napavine was going to take over her Chehalis lease, turn the space into a boutique that will launch this fall or winter. So
Oh,
it's just
Shantae, okay.
Yeah, it's just a handing off of the baton, more or less.
That's
Boutique.
she was
I wonder what she's going to carry down there.
she was the girls basketball coach out there,
Oh, okay.
and yeah.
I always think it'd be so fun to own a little boutique, like a little clothing store. That'd be awesome.
I know you're a connoisseur of fine art because you've brought your findings to my office.
You've seen my art.
Some would classify it as offensive, others as...
You've seen my art.
Yeah.
I bought that art downtown at the Shady Lady,
Yeah.
and it is a wonderful picture.
Where did you end up installing that piece?
So I hung it in my house, and then it
Briefly.
and then saw it in my shop.
That's hilarious.
And had no idea. I asked my soon-to-be bride, and she said, "Oh yeah, I put that out there. I don't want that crap in my house."
Oh, well.
Fair enough. So the art collection's hanging out in the shop, collecting dust. What it should be.
I will say it was provocative.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was.
And for the viewers, I'll explain it to you. It was a ladybug transforming into another creature. It was awesome.
And it, yeah. That's not how I would describe it, but...
Well, you looked at it. You don't look at it as art.
right, no.
I have that artistic
It's
mindset.
borderline pornography.
I
It
was
was not.
assuming it was.
It
something
was a
closer to
painting.
that.
It was a painting.
It's art. And
You
Facebook,
can't judge art. You cannot judge art.
Let's get to Facebook comments of the week and wrap this up. Just a few today. First comment, this is on the bank robbery story. The Chronicle should never publish the amount taken in a bank robbery. Why not?
That is it's something that we're taught to ask. At least I was taught to ask. It's on the police department not to tell you. So I think the correct answer or the correct comment, I appreciate the person reading and commenting, would be the Thurston County Sheriff's Office should never give out the amount of money stolen. But if you're a reporter, you're trying to get as much information as possible. So there's the run on bank robberies from they slipped a note and got $40 to they broke the vault and stole for $500,000. And I've actually reported on both kinds over my time as a reporter.
Sick brag.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying it's a question you ask, and 9 times out of 10, the sheriff's office or police or whoever, they just say, we're not going to comment on that. In this case, the officer said over $2,500. So, as the news source, we're not in the business of asking for information, getting the information, and then holding it close to our hearts and not sharing it. So
yeah, and plus, like if you're reading a story about a bank robbery, that's like the second question you ask. The first one is like, how did they do it? How much money did they
her
get?
thought process, I'm sure, or the commenter's thought process is if you make it look like a lucrative crime, more people will attempt it.
Yeah.
Especially if the person's on the run, as is the case here, because then it looks like not only is it lucrative, but it's something you can get away with rather easily.
Yeah.
Fair comment, though. Fair
comment, but anytime I read a bank robbery story, that's my first question is, wow, I wonder how much money they got.
Well, and then you start to wonder, like you drift a little bit, like, I wonder if I could get away with it.
Right. And
I know,
that's
I have
why
thought
she's
about
saying that we shouldn't include
I
it
have
in
thought
there.
about that. My big thing's like the movies. You watch the movies, you're like, wow, that was easy.
It's a real thing. It makes your mind turn when you're a crime reporter. And we had a guy in Montana. I can't remember. He had a cool nickname. You know how you get nicknames from the cops. But the banks there are all up against,
bandits.
like they're in these little tiny towns with all sorts of just recreational logging roads going out to the middle of nowhere. And he would ride in on a motorcycle, walk in with his motorcycle helmet and demand money, jump on his motorcycle and take off. And he knocked off like 9 banks.
Yeah, this was the plot of the movie The Place Beyond the Pines.
Oh, was it?
Is that what you're thinking of?
That might have been like
movie
noted
that
after.
Ryan Gosling
Based on a
Look
true
it
story?
up. Kalispell, Montana. It's a true story. He eventually got caught in St.
Literally
Regis.
the first half of Place Beyond the Pines,
He
yes.
he got caught in St. Regis.
Yes.
I thought
Ryan
similar
Gosling.
of Michael Lahr, who was arrested at the Twin Star Credit Union here. His racket was to break windows on the outside of banks in the office areas and find the window that didn't have an alarm on it, because if you weren't trying to get in the vault, sometimes not. Anyways, that's how he did it. So, yeah.
That's a tough one because
Makes bank
I
robbery
tried
reporting
to
very
deposit cash into the Chehalis Twin Star, and they're a cashless bank. Could you imagine robbing a cashless bank? Like you get in there, give me the money. It's like, sorry, sir, we're a card only
We
bank.
can write you a check.
We can cut you a check
What is a cashless
and then deposit
bank?
it to your account while you're there. You never rob your own bank. That's rule 1.
Yes. Let's see. I'm going to skip that comment. It just bothers me. On a story about the Afghan refugees, doesn't anyone remember 9/11? Send those terrorists back.
Yeah,
There's a lot of pretty ugly comments on that story.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There was a lot of comments on there I wasn't especially proud of. There's probably an eloquent way to make the point that, yeah, there may be a bit of a security risk taking on 100,000, citizens of another country that quickly. But, yeah, a lot of what I saw on there was not. It was just kind of hateful.
Yeah, and the majority of them are special immigrant visa holders, which are people and their families who have helped out U.S. forces over the years, translators and such. Then another comment, I can't remember what this was on, but it was Obama spent a cool $100 million on mind control studies. The author is obviously under the influence.
I wish
Schwartz,
I knew
can you
what story that was.
confirm, did Obama spend $100 million on mind control devices?
I don't know.
Studies.
I don't know. I don't deny anything I have not read about personally. So,
Do you think he did it personally or in his capacity as president?
probably in his capacity of president if he did it.
I don't know. Agree to disagree.
Let's
running
say
out
you're
of gas
president
here.
and you have the resources. Are you not going to pursue that?
If I had $100 million, learning how to control other people's minds would be the last thing I would care about.
Maybe call me a conspiracy theorist, but the idea of the federal government spending $100 million on a program on how to read minds or control minds, that wouldn't shock me at all.
I'm not shocked. I mean, have they told us everything about aliens?
That's
yet?
why I don't want to deny it. It could have been some like 1960s project or something that's still funded.
I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I have seen Twitter and Facebook, and if you want to know what people are thinking, you don't need a mind control study. Like,
That's true.
You just need an email account.
That's true.
People are going to tell you what they think, whether you want to hear it or not.
Fair enough.
That wraps it up for this edition.
I've got some housekeeping matters here.
Oh, yeah, you got some housekeeping. All right, lay it on me.
We've got a football special section coming up next week. I believe it's in next Thursday's paper. It's our annual special section looking at high school prep football, which actually begins this weekend. So be on the lookout for that. And then is it too soon to announce the launch of the Chronicle Sports Dump,
Let's talk about it.
the upcoming podcast that might launch tomorrow, looking at the local sports scene and sponsored by Global Septic.
It's, we're going to try to get the first episode out tomorrow. Apparently, I'm in charge of it, producing it, I guess.
You are our podcast producer.
Maybe hosting it. I'm trying to work out some things to get some different voices in there. I think people are tired of listening to me.
There's some contract issues with bringing Aaron in, but once we get those ironed out,
it's gonna be a Jeopardy situation, isn't it?
Pretty good.
We read
So hopefully not a Jeopardy situation. That went
some
south.
of
He's completely
old
gone.
tweets in your capacity as sports editor, and we can't employ you, sir.
Not in good conscience.
Yeah, we're working on that. I'm kicking around some ideas. We're going to try to do a first episode tomorrow night with new sports reporter Alec Dietz and sports editor Eric Trent. I think the basis is going to be me just asking them, like, so who's good at football? What's happening? And then we'll go from there. So hopefully we'll get that tomorrow. I don't know if it'll be out on its own feed or if we'll just throw it on the News Dump feed. So if you're subscribed, you'll get it. We'll discuss that and see what happens.
My last item is that, and I'm going to break news here. It'll probably be on Chronline later this evening. And this is serious news. Or it'll be on Chronline tomorrow, but just be on the lookout for it. We have a story coming from reporter Emily Fitzgerald that manslaughter charges are being brought against 4 or 5 people in relation to the death of Jonathan Stringer, who readers will remember as the Chehalis man who died at the Skookumchuck wind farm in a ditch that was not secured and collapsed on him.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty serious. We saw the charges come through early this morning, and there was first 3, then 4, then 5 people charged with manslaughter. And last I spoke with Emily, it looks like it's going to be the people who dug the ditch in addition to the people who ran the project. So pretty big story.
Wow.
That is a big story. Nice job, Emily.
All right, and with that, we're going to close out this edition of News Dump. We'll be back next week and perhaps tomorrow with some sports things. I don't know. Ooh. Thanks for listening. As always, rate, review on Apple or Spotify or whatever. Thanks.